Growing up in the Martinez household meant understanding the hierarchy from an early age. Elena, my older sister by 4 years, was destined to be the family success story. Pre-med at Northwestern, accepted into medical school, residency at the Mayo Clinic, and now thriving as an orthopedic surgeon in downtown Seattle. I was the creative one. In our family, that was code for the one who will probably struggle financially forever. Music isn't a career, mija, Mom would say whenever I talked about my dreams of working in the industry. It's a hobby. Elena is going to save lives. What are you going to do? Play guitar on street corners? The comments stung, but they weren't entirely unfair. By the time I turned 30, my music career looked exactly like what my family had predicted. A string of small gigs, session work that barely paid rent, and a pile of songs no one seemed interested in hearing. I lived in a cramped East Nashville apartment with 2 roommates, surviving on ramen and whatever free food I could find at industry events. Meanwhile, Elena had everything our parents dreamed of for their daughters: a beautiful home in an upscale Seattle neighborhood, a BMW, vacations in Europe, and, more importantly, the admiration of the entire extended family. Dr. Martinez, they called her at gatherings, always emphasizing the title. I was just Sophia, or more often, Elena's sister who's still trying to make it in music. The pattern was clear. Elena's achievements were celebrated with family dinners and Facebook posts that drew hundreds of likes. My small victories, landing a session gig with a touring band, hearing one of my songs on a local radio station, or writing jingles for an ad agency, were met with polite smiles before the conversation shifted back to Elena. "That's nice, honey," Mom would say. "Did you see Elena's latest research paper in the Journal of Orthopedic Surgery? Or the article about her in the hospital newsletter?" It wasn't cruelty. They loved me, in their way. But they had long ago decided Elena would bring honor to the family name, while I would be the one they supported emotionally, and occasionally financially, through a lifetime of artistic disappointments. The breaking point came when Elena announced her engagement to Robert Chin, a successful cardiologist she'd met during residency. The wedding planning turned into a year-long celebration of her career, her stability, and her ability to attract an equally successful partner. "We're thinking about a destination wedding," Elena said during a family dinner. "Maybe somewhere in Italy. Robert's family has connections there." Dad nearly choked on his wine. "Elena, that's going to be expensive." "We can afford it," she replied with a shrug that was both casual and smug. "Between my practice and Robert's salary, money isn't really an issue." The implication was obvious. Unlike some people in the family, Elena had made responsible choices. Mom, trying to include me, suggested, "Sophia should sing at the ceremony. She has such a beautiful voice." Elena's smile tightened. "That's sweet, Mom, but we're hiring professional musicians. This isn't really the right venue for, well, you know." Everyone understood what she meant. My amateur music wasn't suitable for her sophisticated wedding. 3 months before the wedding, I got a call that changed everything. "Sophia Martinez." The voice was crisp, professional, with a slight British accent. "Speaking. This is James Worthington from Atlantic Records. I've been listening to some demos that came across my desk. Your name was on several of them as songwriter and producer." My heart stopped. Atlantic Records was calling me. The next 20 minutes felt like a dream. James explained they wanted me to co-write and produce tracks for Maya Chin, a pop artist whose last 2 albums had gone platinum. The initial trial alone paid $150,000, more than I had earned in the last 3 years combined. The next 6 months were grueling but exhilarating. Maya turned out to be collaborative and fearless, pushing me to create music that was bold, experimental, and deeply personal. When we finished the album, Metamorphosis, we both knew it was something special. But the industry moves slowly, and I had to keep it secret. So, for 4 months, I endured family dinners where Elena dominated every conversation with her wedding plans while I sat on the biggest secret of my career. 2 months before the wedding, Elena smirked across the table. "Are you even working these days? You seem to have a lot of free time." "I've been in the studio," I said carefully. "Still doing those little demos?" she asked, as though commenting on a child's art project. "That's nice. Keeps you busy." Her condescension was nothing new, but it felt different now. I carried knowledge that would soon change everything, though I couldn't say a word. The wedding day arrived, an elegant, expensive affair overlooking Elliott Bay. Elena was radiant, Robert was charming, and the entire guest list seemed plucked from a medical or legal directory. At the reception, Elena introduced me to Robert's colleagues. "This is my sister, Sophia. She's our family's creative spirit." "What kind of work do you do?" asked Dr. Anderson, Robert's department head. Before I could answer, Elena laughed lightly. "Sophia's been trying to make it in the music industry for years. She writes songs, does some studio work, very artistic. Failed art career, really." The words cut like a knife. I managed a quiet, "Art is tough," letting her win the moment as always. Then my phone buzzed. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something made me glance at the screen. A Los Angeles number. "Sophia Martinez," I answered softly. "Ms. Martinez, this is Patricia Williams from the Recording Academy. I'm calling with some fantastic news. Congratulations, you've been nominated for a Grammy Award for Producer of the Year for your work on Maya Chin's Metamorphosis album." The world stopped. Elena's laughter, the clinking of champagne glasses, the music, all faded. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "You've been nominated for Producer of the Year. The album is also up for Album of the Year, Best Pop Vocal Album, and Song of the Year for Invisible Threads, which you co-wrote. Official announcements go out tomorrow, but we call nominees first." I looked up. Elena was glaring at me, irritated that I'd dared to take a phone call at her wedding. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small in her shadow. "Thank you," I whispered, barely holding back tears. "This is incredible. Congratulations again, Sophia. We'll be in touch soon with more details." I hung up the phone and looked at the group still gathered around me: Elena, Robert, Dr. Anderson, and several other medical professionals who'd been prepared to offer polite condolences about my so-called failed artistic ambitions. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Elena's smile had vanished, replaced by confusion and growing alarm. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice tight with control. "I've been nominated for a Grammy Award," I said, the words still feeling surreal as they left my mouth. "For Producer of the Year." Dr. Anderson's eyebrows shot up. "A Grammy, as in the Grammy Awards?" "Yes. For an album I produced with Maya Chin. It's also nominated for Album of the Year." The group exchanged bewildered glances. Elena looked like someone had just told her that gravity no longer applied in this particular location. "Why, Chin?" Robert asked. "The pop singer. Her new album Metamorphosis," I confirmed. "We worked on it for 6 months. It went platinum last month." Elena's mouth opened and closed several times before she managed. "You never said you were working with Maya Chin." "I was under a non-disclosure agreement until the album was released. I couldn't talk about it." "But you've been, we thought you were," Elena trailed off, struggling to find words that wouldn't sound as condescending as her earlier remarks. "Doing session work and small gigs." "I've been doing a lot of things," I said. "Including producing one of the biggest albums of the year, apparently." Dr. Anderson recovered first. "This is extraordinary. Grammy nominations are incredibly prestigious. Do you mind me asking, what does something like this mean for your career?" It was a question I was still figuring out myself. "It means I'll probably have more opportunities to work with major artists. The financial compensation for this project alone has been substantial." Elena looked like she was going to be sick. The sister she'd just described as a failure to her husband's colleagues had secretly been achieving the kind of success most people only dream of. "How substantial?" Robert asked with the bluntness of someone used to discussing money. I hesitated. The numbers felt almost embarrassing to say out loud, especially considering how my family had always perceived me. The producer fee for this album was $2.8 million, plus royalties that will continue for years. The champagne glass in Elena's hand began to shake. $2.8 million. Dr. Anderson repeated. "For one album," I explained. "It's been #1 for 8 weeks. Maya's previous albums were hugely successful, so the label was willing to pay for the right producer. Apparently, I was the right producer." Elena set her glass down carefully, as though afraid she might drop it. By now the group around us had grown larger. Other wedding guests were drifting over, curious about the intense conversation. Grammy nomination, Elena repeated slowly, as if trying to force the words to make sense. You're nominated for a Grammy. Producer of the Year, I confirmed. Alongside some of the biggest names in the industry. Mom appeared at my elbow, alarmed by the commotion. What's everyone talking about? Sophia, who was on the phone. Before I could answer, Dr. Anderson jumped in. Your daughter has been nominated for a Grammy Award. She produced Maya Chin's new album. Mom's face went through the same progression as Elena's, confusion, disbelief, then dawning realization. A Grammy? She asked weakly. For nominations. Actually, I clarified, the album is up for Album of the Year too. The crowd was swelling, Dad pushing through to see what was happening. Elena stood frozen in the center of it all, watching her carefully orchestrated wedding day slip into something entirely different. This was supposed to be her moment. Instead, everyone was talking about her sister's secret success. 4 Grammy nominations, someone repeated in awe. Maya Chin, another added. That album is incredible. Did you know about this? Dad asked Mom. We had no idea, Mom said. We thought she was still doing small studio work. Elena finally found her voice. Why didn't you tell us? And for the first time all evening, she didn't sound condescending, just hurt. I couldn't, I explained. NDAs are standard in the industry, especially for high-profile projects. I wasn't allowed to say anything until after the release. But this is huge, Robert said, looking between us as if seeing our family dynamic for the first time. This is career-defining success. Elena's face was pale. She was processing more than surprise. She was remembering years of dismissive comments, years of calling me the family failure. Elena, I said softly, I'm sorry this happened at your wedding. I didn't know they'd call today. She looked at me for a long moment, her emotions too complex for words. Finally, she said, no. I'm the one who should apologize. What I said earlier about your career. I had no idea. The admission hung in the air, witnessed by everyone who'd overheard her mocking me. It's okay, I said gently. But I should have supported you, Elena insisted. Even if I didn't understand. Even if it looked like you were struggling. I should have been encouraging instead of what I was. Robert raised his glass then, his voice loud enough to carry. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to add another toast. To Sophia Martinez, Grammy nominee and, apparently, secret musical genius. The room erupted in cheers. Dozens of guests congratulated me, people who, just an hour earlier, had thought of me only as Elena's less successful sister. Elena stood beside me, smiling through her complicated emotions, pride, happiness, and maybe grief for the relationship we might have had if she hadn't spent so many years dismissing me. Later that night, barefoot on the terrace overlooking the water, Elena turned to me, tears in her eyes. I owe you more than an apology. I've been a terrible sister. For years, I mocked your dreams. Not to protect you, she shook her head, but to protect myself. I needed you to fail so I could feel like the successful one. The honesty was painful but freeing. Your success doesn't diminish mine, I told her. You're an amazing doctor. You save lives. That matters. And your success doesn't diminish mine, she said, her voice steady. But I acted like it did. We stood in silence, processing. Then Elena asked with a small, rueful smile. When I told everyone about your failed art career earlier, and you already knew about the Grammy, how did you not punch me in the face? I laughed, the first genuine laugh all night. I thought about it. I would have deserved it. Maybe. But I've learned success is its own revenge. I didn't need to defend myself. Reality spoke louder. She nodded. Reality certainly spoke tonight. 4 months later, at the Grammy Awards, Metamorphosis won Album of the Year. Maya Chin thanked me on stage, naming me in her speech. Elena was in the audience, crying and applauding with genuine pride. And in that moment, I knew, success wasn't just about achieving dreams. It was about proving they were worth chasing, even when everyone else thought they were impossible.